Hi, and welcome to the How to Survive Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Thompson-Riviere, seasoned critical care RN turned independent patient advocate. Tune in every week so that you can learn the things about the U.S. healthcare system that no one ever tells you. That way that you can get the most from it and optimize your health outcomes. Now, of course, this podcast is strictly to inform and entertain and should never be taken as a substitute for medical advice. Let's dive right in. Welcome back to another episode of How to Survive Healthcare. This one is going to be another one of those episodes that covers things about your health that your doctor doesn't tell you, you don't learn in school, and who knows if you heard it anywhere. So this week, August 15th, is National Relaxation Day. So I just wanted to take a minute to talk about relaxation because it is very undervalued in our society, isn't it? We live in a society that is steeped in stress. Our society encourages the hustle and really, going hard every day. And you have to almost like earn relaxation. And it really is quite disrespectful against honoring your body's needs. Furthermore, we encourage things like eating overprocessed food-like substances to relieve stress, drinking poison to relieve stress, aka alcohol. It is a literal poison. Look it up if you don't believe me. And the other major stress reliever that's promoted in our society is sitting on your butt and watching television, which tends to be incredibly overstimulating and sometimes focused on stressful situations like the Real Housewives of whichever county. That stuff is crazy. I can't even hear it in the background. It stresses me out. So all of these things keep you stressed. And why does that matter? Well, the human body is not meant to be in a state of sustained stress. And it comes with a lot of sequela from that. So back in the day when we were like cavemen, our brain developed in a way to protect us from threats like cougars and starvation. And it really hasn't evolved to adapt with modern society, which has changed rapidly in the past 100 years. It's only a couple of generations. So your brain is wired that when there is stressful input, it releases hormones like epinephrine. That's the most common fight or flight hormone that do some things in your body. It raises your cortisol levels. It gets your heart pumping. I'm sure we've all felt this reaction. I believe you can probably pinpoint some of the feelings of stress in your body. You may be feeling it right now. Now, these things are actually really beneficial to the body in the short term. Some of these things are also triggered by exercise, and it's part of the reason why exercise is so good for you. What the problem comes in is when it stays in this elevated state. See, back in the caveman era, the cougar would come, we would fight or run away from it, and then we didn't have all these external pressures that we have in modern day society. So all of those stress hormones were allowed to dissipate and our body could return back down to a baseline status. However, the state we live in today, we are constantly stimulated. I saw a study somewhere that we receive more stimulation and inputs in a single day than people 200 years ago would receive in their entire lifetime. And we just don't have the filtering capability to deal with it all unless we start to become very intentional and mindful about recognizing that stimulation and creating some space where it isn't, and actively combating the stress response that it puts our body into. This is really important because, as I'm sure you've heard before, stress affects your body. But it does so in some pretty profound ways that you may not be familiar with. Just to give you some scary statistics about why this is so important, Stress is a major contributing factor to many chronic illnesses. And almost half of Americans, according to the CDC, an estimated 129 million Americans have one or more major chronic illness. And when we say major, we're talking heart disease, cancer, strokes, diabetes, things that affect every aspect of your body and your life. Furthermore, half of the leading causes of death in America are related to treatable or preventable illnesses, and stress contributes to almost all of them. So, ergo, getting a better mechanism in place for managing stress and entering into the realm of relaxation is going to make you overall healthier and hopefully decrease the amount that you need to access the healthcare system and just illness in general. So I mentioned cortisol a few minutes ago. That's released by your adrenal glands. Again, when your body recognizes that there is some sort of an assault on the body, something you need to prepare to either fight or run away from. What that does over time is it decreases your body's ability to make white blood cells. White blood cells are they're like the policemen of the body. They fight off invaders. They keep you from getting sick. And if you are sick, they're the ones that help to defeat that illness. So if you don't have as many of them, you're more likely to become sick, short-term or long-term. It also increases inflammation over time. And inflammation is linked with body system-wide inflammation is linked with all kinds of issues like irritable bowel syndrome, stress ulcers in the stomach, difficulty just plain digesting food, arthritis, things like eczema and psoriasis that can kind of flare up. And then, of course, this will also contribute to feelings of anxiety and depression. Some other things that maybe not necessarily related to cortisol, but long-term stress can cause are muscle aches, pains, and back pains. Back pain, it plagues Americans, and it's multifactorial, but stress plays a huge role in that. For many years, I think the modern medical system has kind of minimized the impact of stress on the body, and it created this situation where the mind was considered completely separate from the body until quite recently. And I think even now, mainstream medicine doesn't treat that mind-body connection as closely as we should. But they are very closely connected. And when there's undealt with stress in the mind, it often will settle in and manifest in the body. There's been quite an interesting number of cases that people have shared their stories where they were getting mainstream medical treatment, pain medication, steroid injections, these kind of things for chronic back pain. And then when they started to actually work on their mental health, the pain disappeared and from places that for years it couldn't be treated. These things are very close. Stress and trauma that's not dealt with in the mind gets stored in the body. This is more important than we act like it is, typically. One of the most interesting representations of this, in my opinion, is the heart condition. I'm going to butcher this. It's Takotsubo. It's based on a Japanese word it's an octopus trapping pot. Okay, so it's also called broken heart syndrome. So when somebody experiences a period of tremendous emotional stress or distress, it doesn't have to be from quote unquote a broken heart. It can actually cause so much stress on the heart that it deforms the way the heart looks, and it takes on the shape of this octopus catching trap that they use in Japan, which is why that's what it's named after. And it also affects the function. It makes the heart muscle weaker. Now, this is typically a short-lived thing. It's not something that lasts forever. Once somebody gets through that emotional state, the heart can recover from this, but it is something that it can land them in the hospital and needing medications to help support the heart to keep pumping during this time. Now, Takotsubo is so interesting to me because it is a very dramatic, very clear representation of what stress can do on the body. Now, not everybody who has this condition experience an extreme emotional stress. Sometimes it does come along with a huge physical stress on the body, such as significant illness. But about 80% of the time, it is purely from emotional stress. So if emotional stress and all of the the stress hormones that come along with it can be significant enough to literally change the shape and function of your heart, just think about what else it can do. I just find it interesting because this is, I think, one of the only times in medicine where like the medical community directly recognizes the significant impact that our feelings, thoughts, and emotions can have on our physical body. But I will stand on this soapbox and tell you it is not the only time. We as the medical community at large also recognizes the role of stress with stomach ulcers. They're often called stress ulcers, and also irritable bowel syndrome, while not necessarily directly caused by stress, that's a huge trigger for it. So if stress in the body can change the shape and function of your heart and literally put holes in your stomach, just think about what else it can do. And we can apply some common sense here. I think we've probably all caught ourselves in a situation where we realize that we're feeling stress. Perhaps somebody was blatantly rude to us and it really got our adrenaline pumping, and we can feel that we're breathing heavier and that our heart is pumping faster and that our body is like wired. So think back to one of those times and it becomes very obvious that these stress incidences have body-wide ramifications. And when you're constantly living in that state of stress, and maybe not so high that you're having that, heart pumping place, but how many times do you come home at the end of the day and it's the first time that you feel like you've really taken a breath? That means you've been living in this place of chronic stress where you're elevated, and your body has been exposed to all of these hormones and catecholamines this entire time. So I want to give you some practical tips in honor of National Relaxation Day to try to break some of this trend. I'd encourage you to put some of these things in place for yourself so that even regardless if you carry a diagnosis of chronic illness or not, this will help you just generally feel better physically and mentally. So we really want to focus on developing and strengthening the mind-body connection. Of course, as I mentioned, it's more connected than modern medicine tends to give credit to, but the more aware and then intentional you can be around that connection is the key. So first of all, you need to go outside. The human body was designed to be in nature, and we have become very disconnected from nature. We spend sometimes our entire days inside, curtains drawn, in a car, but how often are you actually getting out in nature? How often are your feet touching the ground? Like actually your bare feet touching the dirt and the grass. I think that you've probably had a situation where intuitively you find when you put yourself in that position that you're feeling better, but now we're actually finding science to back this up. There was an article I stumbled upon recently where they're finding compounds in dirt that transfer through the skin and create sort of a similar reaction of taking antidepressants. Of course, if you have a diagnosis of major depressive disorder, I'm not saying don't take your pills and go play in the dirt, not at all. But kind of bringing some of this back to basics and honoring our body and treating it the way that we're supposed to is going to help produce a lot of these feel-good hormones and counteract and get us out of this stress state. Another big one is water. So we've mentioned the term fight or flight response. When you get into that place, one of the things that happens is that your circulatory system diverts blood flow away from the digestive system. Because think about it, again, if there's a cougar there and a real cougar, and you're trying to run away and escape, digesting food is not important. And all of the effort that the body has to spend gets diverted to the heart, the lungs, and the large muscles so that you can run away or fight. So by drinking water, when you feel a stress sensation come on, and I'm talking like a good 8 or 16 ounces of water, you help to send the message to your body that, hey, I'm taking in water. There's nothing we need to fight right now. And that can help to stop and get you out of that process of fight or flight. Another thing, when you recognize you're in a heightened state, is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding principle. So this is, you look around yourself and you want to find 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear. I'm sorry, four things that you can feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And what that's helpful for is to bring you into the present moment, to get you out of the spiral of thoughts that was elevating this stress response, to help to send the signals to make sense of the signals that your body is receiving, to tell your mind we're not in danger. We do not need to be fighting or flighting, running away. And to help you ground you back into this present moment. And why I say the present moment is when we talk about mental health, a lot of times, what are the 2 biggest things that come up? Anxiety and depression. Down and simply put, anxiety is the fear of the future or overthinking of the future, and depression is the overthinking of the past. Neither of those things are something we can do anything about right now other than learn from the past. But what we have right now is this present moment. And what we have right now is this present moment and this present moment. So helping to your mind to recognize that this is where we are right now can help to break that chain of loops and spirals in your mind that's keeping you in that heightened emotional state. I also really encourage you, we've talked about this before, to get some regular physical activity in your day, preferably outside, so that you can, kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Sunlight is amazing for the human body. You're supposed to be in it. It recharges all of your feel-good hormones. Get out in the sunlight, breathe the fresh air. If you can, do it barefoot in the grass if you have a yard or something. Or shoot, I recommend every now and then on a nice day, go lay out in the grass and go look at the clouds like you did as a kid. I mean, it feels good. And these are the things that we're supposed to be doing to help our body relax, not ingesting boxed, preserved food pumped full of chemicals. It's not food, guys. It's food-like products. And it's interesting. I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day, but all this packaged food loaded up with all kinds of crap you can't even pronounce, it makes you sick. It causes stress and inflammation in the body. And it makes you sick, but at such a slow rate that most people don't recognize that it's what's making them sick. And then you just keep ingesting it. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I am one who is a stress eater. I have to really be cognizant and careful of that, of a propensity to lean towards those packaged goods and eat my feelings. I try to keep to the 80-20 rule, and that's what I would recommend for you, because it's certainly not realistic and you'll stress yourself out trying to eat clean 100% of the time, but as much as you can, foods that grew from the ground or exist in nature, that's really what we should be eating. So whole grains, fruits, vegetables, lean meats and proteins, beans, chicken, whatever floats your boat. And then, of course, real social connection. I said real, meaning not social media. There's lots of studies on that as well, but social media is another one of those things that typically can increase that stress response and keep you in that elevated state. And it actually, there's associations between people who consume social media the most and heightened feelings of anxiety, depression, and social disconnection when you're consuming content. Go out of your way to make social arrangements. Don't wait for your friends to call you. They're probably waiting for you to call them. I think everybody kind of gets in this trap or gets stuck in their, kind of day-to-day routines. Reach out to people, make a coffee date, have your friend over for dinner, whatever it is. Get the kids together at the park and sit on the bench and chit chat. But you have to make some time for real social connection to help recharge your batteries. So these are some of my favorite relaxation techniques. I'd love to hear yours. And if nothing else, please, August 15th is National Relaxation Day. I encourage you to take some time to think about your relaxation practice. Do you even have one? Maybe it's time to institute one. And just like I was saying on last week's podcast, start really small. If you're somebody who has been feeling burnt out and just, running from sun up to sundown every day and you don't even know where to start with one of these small practices. Maybe it's just taking 5 minutes every day to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding practice while you're sitting outside, weather permitting. Just a suggestion, but I would love to see you put some of these practices in place and start really giving your body, bringing down that baseline level so that your body can function the way that it needs to and you can live a healthier life. If stress management is something you feel that you need help with, please do not hesitate to reach out. No problem is too small. I am here to help you. Go to www.heardforlife.com, HEARDFORLIFE.com, and we'll be happy to help. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Take care.